loosely. They're used to do exactly what they did. The incite fear, to make people scared, to make people worried, to let people know that they
then that's
exist.
domestic. Think about it then. Then what is domestic terrorism?
You made the choice to smoke the cigarettes, which caused you to have
Right.
lung cancer. So the choice led
Possibly.
to having a disease.
Correct, but the choice was not the disease. Is what I'm trying to say from that standpoint. Again,
Okay.
for me, does that make
But
sense?
addiction is a disease.
This is Common Courtesy, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. A talk show for working LGBTQ plus individuals and allies who are active in their own communities and who also wish to stay woke about what's happening in today's world. With your host, Sean Nicholas.
I'm still sour for not winning this little acting award in high school. I'm still sour.
Angelique Young.
I can't do the caged bird thing. It's not my thing. I'm literally, my symbol is a freaking half man.
And Ivan Alexander.
Oh, I need to change this. No, you can't change this. Okay, before Gaga, I was born this way. Okay,
This is Common Courtesy.
that was doomed from the start.
Bulging and shit.
Yeah.
Oh
That
my
was doomed
God.
from the start.
Around Sue's or whatever, and
No, that was me.
but that's our stereo.
So, let's start the conversation.
Hey guys, and this is a Common Courtesy, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. I am your host and moderator, Sean Nicholas, aka Desire Some More, and alongside me, I have my awesome co-host. First up, I have nightclub performer and show director Angelique Young. Also as well, we have radio personality and our own favorite comedian known as The Voice. We have Ivan Alexander.
Hey, yeah.
And welcoming to our panel today, who is no stranger to the Tampa Bay drag scene, who is also Winifred Sanford from the Hocus Pocus around Halloween time, nightclub performer and show director, Kathryn Nevets.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Kathryn. How are you for this episode?
I'm not bad. Things are well. It's raining off and on. It's a beautiful 75 degrees here in beautiful Lakeland, Florida.
Well, welcome to the panel. We are so very much glad to have you. So guys, let's get this conversation started. We've been talking about alcoholism in the LGBTQ plus community, and just answering the outpour of appreciation and support on our conversations. And one of them came from Kathryn. I wanted to continue the conversation on alcoholism in our community. And so first up, with Kathryn joining us in this discussion, I wanted to ask you, because you did speak in our comment section about your struggles with alcoholism. Can you tell us your story and when you discovered that you had an issue with alcohol?
Well, the story really is that I've worked in nightclubs for a long time. Prior to that, I was in the nightclubs a long time. What I've learned through the process is it was my safe space, and alcohol was there, and it turned into, it was just always a party. Coming to terms with my alcoholism was years and years and years of coming to realizing it, denying it, making excuses, and finally just having enough and deciding to just not have it anymore and just keep it out of my life. It's not good. Nothing tragic happened, but something tragic could have happened. And that was really my wake-up call. And it scared the hell out of me. So I said, no more. I can't do this anymore. That's it in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
And I've found that I have extreme social anxiety. Maybe not extreme. Maybe I'm inflating it a little bit in my head. But I have learned that that's what drove the alcoholism, and I've had to learn how to. I'm still learning how to cope with it and move forward and learn to be me again.
Okay, before I start crying, because that was a real Oprah moment, because that's exactly what. So let's get this conversation a little bit started, a little bit more specific, because I wanted to ask you guys a question. So here are some facts. All right. In 2019, a study done by the National Institute of Alcohol Use and Alcoholism found that 14 million Americans 12 and older suffer from alcohol use disorder, and less than 10% of those individuals receive treatment. Okay, so that being said, my big question, is alcoholism in our LGBTQ plus community, now, is it seen as an actual disease, or is it seen as a moral failing, a choice? I want.
Okay, well, see, first of all, I guess as I get older, I look at words meaning to mean what they actually mean. For me personally, alcoholism is not a disease. Now, some people may say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, back up." But typically, by definition, a disease is something that afflicts either something, plant, animal, humans, physical, biological situation where you have a disease that's attacking something, so to speak. And I see Angelique's face. So the actual real definition is a disorder of structure or function in a human, animal, or plant, especially one that produces specific signs or symptoms or that affects specific locations. It's not simply a direct result of physical injury. So for me, I can say alcoholism is an addiction. I can say that it is, I just can't consider that a disease as far as diseases go. And I think we put labels on things and we kind of manipulate things to make them to be something that's different. So for me personally, that's my biggest thing there. As a disease, no. As a condition, yes. Can you be susceptible to it because of heredity? Quite possibly, yes. But I just can't get on that whole disease part, because the alcohol is there. You are physically intaking it, and you're not drunk all the time. You know at one point in time whether or not you should stop. Like Kathryn said, she's had enough. She's done with it. At some point in time, the brain cells are still there to say, I can't do this. I should not do this. You can't do that with a disease. You can't tell cancer to stop. You can't tell diseases, okay, I've had enough, you stop. That doesn't work that way. So that's why part of me is just saying I really cannot call this a disease as far as the medical definition goes, because there is some self-involvement to get the alcohol into your system.
Okay. And let's go to
so wait, so
Kathryn.
You didn't answer the question.
Oh.
So are you saying
he said he didn't think it was a disease
and that it is a choice?
I think
but he never quite said it was a choice either. So I just want to be clear as to where his final decision is.
I think to a degree it starts off as a choice, because you're actually putting that in your system. After a point in time when the addiction hits and you can no longer control it, then you have a situation. But to me, that's not a disease, that's an addiction. So part of that is behavioral.
But you choose to smoke cigarettes, which would cause, not you personally, but someone would choose to smoke the cigarette, which would cause lung cancer.
Okay.
Correct. But you still made a decision to put that cigarette in your mouth and take the consequences of that. So smoking a cigarette didn't start the disease. It wasn't there before you started smoking the cigarette per se. So I'm saying you have some culpability to say
you made the choice to smoke the cigarettes, which caused you to have lung cancer. So the choice led to having a disease.
Correct, but the choice was not the disease. Is what I'm trying to say from that standpoint. Again, for me, does that make sense?
But addiction is a disease.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You make the choice to drink the alcohol, and then you develop a disease called addiction.
That part, yes, and I'll agree with that. But that's what I'm saying. My initial
that's
response
where I
on it
stand.
being
I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I'm not debating.
Oh, no.
I'm just.
No, exactly. We're good with that.
Hold on.
That's what we do. Definitely.
Okay.
I love this. No, we're good.
And the reason I wanted to pinpoint that is because you can have diseases that aren't physical diseases. They could be mental diseases as well, which is what addiction is. but like Ivan, the community as a whole, and it's the whole community, not just the LGBT plus community, but just society as a whole looks at it as a choice. And quite frankly, I look at it really as both. Because when for me, and I can only speak on my experience, I chose to drink the alcohol, even though alcoholism does run in the family. Even though I knew all the warning signs and everything, I still chose to drink it. And then it led into the disease called addiction, to where I became a binging alcoholic and had to have it as a whole. But to answer the question, I believe our community looks at it as a choice, but I think that's just a reflection of our society as a whole. That's the way I feel about it.
Because I know she's ready to go.
No. I'm really not. I think the difference in most cases is that this topic is very, very close to home, as we've unraveled week upon week, and me and Sean have done talks about this previously on other things. But the reality is that the question is asking, is alcoholism a choice or a disease? And I say that that's a very unfair question to ask. That's asking to box something that's very complicated in a yes or no answer, and that is impossible, because alcoholism suggests that you've already chose to drink. You're beyond the point of no return. To ask that question is to ask somebody after they've jumped off a cliff, are they okay with it? Is effectively what you're doing when you ask this kind of question, because you have to think about it. Once you've crossed the line, you cannot go. Once you've sipped the alcohol and it's in your system, there's no going back. You had the taste, you have the feeling, you get the high. Most people get it, and the first time they don't have any consequences, right? And then when you get deeper into it and it becomes alcoholism, there are consequences that constantly take place, whether it be the way it affects your work, your family, your love life, your self-love, your ability to take care of yourself in multiple ways. So to ask that question, I don't feel like this is fair. I feel like I agree with everyone else's statement where alcoholism is an addiction, and addiction itself is the disease. But to ask if it's a choice, no. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be a fucking alcoholic. I want to be a raging alcoholic. I want to enjoy alcoholism. It's not on the list of things you choose a yes for. So no, I don't believe it is ever a choice. And by definition, if I can't choose any other option, then yes, it is a disease, because alcoholism leads to severe addiction, or could lead to severe addiction, or lead to other forms of addiction on top of that, which is in fact disease, because once you cross that line, there is nothing else but what is ahead of you or what's below you. And for alcoholism as a downer, it is nothing but what's below you. That's why nobody ever says when you get sky high drinking, no, you hit rock bottom drinking, for a reason. Because once you jump off that cliff, there is no return. So while I would love to sit here and say that there is a potential choice in it, no, I think what the problem I have with the gay community is it perpetuates alcoholism. It invites you in and it tells you that you should drink, that you should have fun in this environment, that you need to drink to have fun. So if you want to ask if that's the choice, that's the real ride you sign up for when you walk into the bar or you walk into the gay quote unquote safe spaces. You're not signing up for alcoholism. You're signing up for whatever people put in your hands. And that is a long list of things, because people put a lot of things in your hand in a bar. And we kind of single out alcoholism as the main target because it's easy. It's available, it's what's sold, it's what's on the cover, right? It's all the different liquor makers are selling us things. Makers are selling us things covered in rainbow, right?
I was going to say again on the whole disease addiction topic. Yes, alcoholism can lead to a disease like cirrhosis. Okay, that's a disease of the liver. But alcoholism itself, and this is where maybe my brain isn't wrapped around it this way. Alcohol is not produced by your body per se to have you get to the point where you're an alcoholic. It's something you're still putting in your system. And at some point in time, even though maybe later on you can't control it, and that's the addiction, that's the disease, you still made the physical step to actually drink it. And then from that
really fast, but really fast, because we're running out of time. 2 minutes, but really fast. It does. Alcoholism is a addiction to alcohol, so that is a disease because it does. If I looked it up, it fits a disease model because if it affects an organ, well, the organ it affects is the brain, the midbrain. You know, the brain that controls our survival and pleasure centers. So so it says it has a defect. Yeah, reaction time. So it has an organ, and the disease is like an organ that has a defect that has symptoms. And the symptom that you have is that the fact that you can't control your drinking, you cannot stop, even versus the the negative consequences that happens with your drinking. So I mean, it doesn't really matter if it comes out of like somewhere else
because he's frozen.
Well, that's the symptoms.
Addiction does require it.
Oh. Go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry, you froze. So I was just no. It was just saying that, like, you know, addiction requires you, once you get to that certain point, you become dependent on it. Your body literally goes through withdrawal without it at a certain point. So in that essence, yes, and that's the same thing for any other type of disease. Your body literally goes through withdrawals when it's missing something. It's depleted of something. So yes, it does take away. It takes away your, maybe not the way you like to see it. You know,
it raises the pleasure center line up. Like from where it's like, why are you drinking so much and you continue to drink more? Because the line that you had in your mid-brain, it was here. Now that you've raised that level that she's kind of referring to, it's now here. Now you got to keep going to get drunk. And so it's kind of like a never-ending cycle. So maybe you're not seeing the disease as being affected. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I meant in terms of how it affects the body and how it degrades the body. It literally breaks down the organ. So not only does it affect the brain and the way the brain thinks, it also destroys the liver, which affects the pancreas, which affects all the other organs in simultaneous order, including but not limited to your gallbladder. So the more you do it, you literally destroy that wall. Depending on what kind of liquor you drink, it could even do other damage, so far as to damage the esophageal spasms and your ability to swallow. It can cause for it to decay and cause holes. There's so much more it does, but people don't see that side of it. A lot of people don't get to see the horrible side of it, of what it could do to your body physically, outside of the mental aspect, because most people don't live to that point because it damages the brain so much. Most people either die, end up in jail, or kill someone. So that's the downside to this particular one. It's no different than if an elderly person got in the car and had a heart attack. You know what I mean? But people demonize alcoholism because it has a face. It has an object that you can harm. Cancers and diseases of other kinds, they don't have that physical attribute. You know, people demonize cigarettes, they demonize alcohol, they demonize drugs, yes, because they all at some point in time can cause an addiction.
But like I was saying though, like if we're gonna look at it, if we're gonna ask the question, there's research studies that you kind of did mention that it is affecting your thought process, the brain. It is a disease of the brain. That's what the addiction is, what Kathryn said earlier. And all those other things will happen.
Illness.
Right. It's like literally all those things are happening to your body because the survival mechanism that will say, hey, stop doing that or you're going to die is deeply defected by the disease and the stress of you drinking. But we're going to come back to this conversation because I agree with Angelique. It is a very hard question to ask. Like, is it a choice or whatever or not? Because it's something like a cigarette you smoke, but it's not like breast cancer where you're just walking around and you kind of figure out you have something like that. So we're going to come back to this conversation later and we'll be right back. All right. Hate and bigotry was on the menu outside of the Turning Point USA convention, an event to promote conservative ideals with young voters in Tampa this weekend. All right. So demonstrators were seen waving neo-Nazi flags and anti-Semitic images alongside with flags saying, this is the DeSantis County flags. Turning Point USA has since condemned the demonstrators and said they had nothing to do with the protests. But DeSantis and none of the speakers, none of them condemned what was going on. So my question is there an action? Is the Republican Party's in action promoting this domestic terrorism? Is it escalating them into causing more harm to people? Let me just throw that to you guys. What do you guys think?
Oh, I mean, I don't think that this is anything new to me. I mean, this might be, I think it's funny, honestly. I find it a little comical. And maybe that's just because of how I grew up and how I seen things. Like, this is like another Monday afternoon in my Like, this is something that is, I think it's the best way for me to describe it is that the world is evolving in a place where we now video and picture everything we see rather than turn our heads and walk away. And I think that it's nice that people are recording and documenting these events happening. And if you expect people to speak on this, that is expecting too much, I think, personally, because I think people are still scared of voicing their own opinions on whether, no matter what side of the fence they're on. Because I know that there's people on both sides saying, like, let me out, and there's people secretly saying, let me in, let me in. And I think that since the Trump administration, we have seen an escalation in this amount, and we've seen an escalation in these kind of events throughout the past 5 years. So it's no surprise to me, and I'm not surprised that no one has said anything about it. I think that it's nice that it's documented, because you can't say it never happened, because the beautiful thing about our world is that everything is time-stamped and dated. So I don't know. I think that I like the response that the Holocaust Museum released, stating that they think that this is a situation that everybody should speak up on. But I don't quite remember their stance or them speaking up on other things that happened either. And that's what set them on fire, was a swastika. So, I mean, damn, that was horrible. I didn't think about what I said before I said it. But but the reality is that, like, right, like, right. I'm not going to question. I'm like, I'm glad you're here, but they're not, where no one is going to jump, is my point in this conversation. It's like, it's not going to happen. Not now, not right now. It's going to take a little bit more. They're going to have to actually start to make moves, because unfortunately in our country, because I have watched people sit outside with signs telling me I'm going to hell at every gay bar I've ever gone to in my entire existence. So I'm used to people being allowed to stand on a corner and use freedom of speech to hate me regardless, because it's not designating me. My name and my face isn't on the picture, so they're allowed to hate me. So seeing this in this form is no different. Use freedom of speech to hate me regardless, because it's designating me. My name and my face isn't on the picture, so they're allowed to hate me. So seeing this in this form is no different to me. This is a Friday or Saturday night in Ybor in my mind.
Right.
That's all it is.
Right.
Well, I mean,
so I don't think anything different of it.
to that point, though, you have to realize too, since we're in America, your view matters and their view matters. You can't cancel out one or have one without having the other. It's the whole number line. So if you're going to sit over here and put negative, and you're going to sit over here and put positive, you have both parts have to exist. Now, in the same respect,
right,
the Dixie flag, the Southern flag for Dixie, I don't see too many people out there jumping up and down when that's being displayed, and people are going berserk, and the history behind that. So not that I'm going to call them out for their part, because everybody has issues, okay? Which leads me to a slightly little off-topic thing, but the whole inclusivity. The more we try to include everything, the more we're separating it to the point where it's going backwards. So, and by that I mean we're trying to include everybody to have their piece and their part so much that now we've just separated everything out. And as one example of that, so we go too far off topic, the 14-year-old girl who went to med school, youngest person, 14 years old to go to med school, happened to be Black. But no, how was it promoted? This is the first Black African-American 14-year-old to go to college. Why couldn't she be a 14-year-old going to college who happened to be Black? Because now you're going to have the first Asian and the first Mexican, and you're going to include this and this and this. It's getting to the point now we're separating everything. So back to the topic, if they're going to be out there protesting and the people inside knew about it, does that mean they're complicit and they're condoning it? Or are they saying, hey, you have the right to say what you want to say too, because I can't shut you down because this is America?
Yeah, but on the same hand, there has been a temper tantrum happening in our country since the day Barack Obama was elected president of our wonderful country.
Oh yeah, big time.
The racists have started their little temper tantrum, and it just kept going, and then all of a sudden 2020 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like somebody took, well, it's like California right now. That fire is just going crazy, and we've got leaders flaming these fires. Now, I agree with you, Ivan. The first note I have on this topic is the First Amendment rights. They have every right to do that. and our leaders have no obligation to say anything about it, good, bad, or indifferent. There is no obligation there. However, the fact that they're not just reinstates how I feel, they feel about all of us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised they
Silence is an
didn't say
answer.
anything. I'm not in the least surprised that those people were even there.
Right.
That's there, you know, when you see one drag queen, you know you're going to see a couple more, and usually they got big old bags and carrying a couple wigs. You know
Right.
that. When
Right.
you've got certain people having a convention,
It's not
you're
the only
going to
one.
have their baggage too. It's
Right.
just part of the
Right.
process.
Mhm.
Again, the fact that they've not said a thing about it doesn't surprise me and reinstills the reason why they will not have my vote.
Absolutely. I just kind of wanted to answer, you know, what Ivan was saying about off topic when you were saying, like, you know, you're saying that when they say the first, you know, African American youngest girl to go to college was 14, or the first Asian, whatever, or
Medical school,
whatnot.
right?
You say that it breeds division. I think those things are actually just highlighting people being the first of anything in this country is not breeding division. Is actually answering American history to the fact that we held back so many people from doing things, and it just wasn't Black people being oppressed. It was women, gays, Asians as well, because they were also locked up in the 40s during World War after Japan attacked Japanese Americans were, but they got their reparations. So it's like I understand that argument where it comes from. I'll answer the question, but we have to. My thing is this: I can't ask for equality just for me. It has to be for everyone else. If I'm a marginalized community person, I got to ask for you know, Asian visibility as well, because we're looking for African American visibility on Broadway and television. And so those things, instead of causing division, that's a talking point from the right, because that's like saying talking about Black history or slavery is causing division when it's just talking about truth, and it just makes you uncomfortable. The one thing is, yeah, I'm not surprised they didn't say anything either. I think they should just fucking come out and say it. Like, if you have hate in your heart, this is the party for you.
Come on in, baby. We got you.
Because we all have a first Amendment right to do, like, you know, to peacefully protest, but we don't have the right to just promote hate speech, because hate speech is that's a crime. You know, threatening someone, that is a crime to me. If I'm seeing, like, I don't know why our country isn't like how Germany did when, after the Nazis attacked, they immediately said, hey, you're gonna be waving these flags anywhere. No, absolutely not. We're not doing that in our country, and I think we're kind of that's holding us back to allow people to do that. I think I think those type of flags should be outlawed in our country, because it's not freedom of speech. When your freedom of speech is harming someone, that's the only time your
That's what
Bill
the Jewish
of
community
Rights
was saying in their release statement. They were serious that you guys cannot, like, they literally are out there threatening people's lives by seeing that, like, you're literally causing, whether you want to admit it or not, trauma to other people. Just because it wasn't specified doesn't mean that, like, that's not going to
it was specified. It was specified. They had anti-Semitic
No, when I say specified, I mean, like, they're not saying John J. Goldstein and having his picture on it and then saying him and his family are next. Like, that is specification. The generalization is what saves them. It's literally the reason why they're allowed to do it, is because it's a generalization. They're just saying that they're not saying they hate you. They're saying they love this. And if loving this hates you, then that's okay. But they're not going to say, I hate you. And they have the quotes and the things that they use. They're used loosely. They're used to do exactly what they did. The incite fear, to make people scared, to make people worried, to let people know that they exist.
That's domestic. Think about it then. Then what is domestic terrorism if it's not a political move or imagery? They were at a political event to incite.
Because there's not a real threat. So the difference between the two is that terrorism is a threat.
Right.
But at one point in
It's
time,
not. It's not.
See, I think-
It's like I said. It is not a threat to say I love people who kill people. It is not. If that's the case, then technically we can't love the army or any kind of military force, right? It's the catch-22 of it all. The same thing about the little girl who went to the thing that you guys are talking about. It's a catch-22. If the newspaper had left out the fact that she was a Black girl, the Black community would have been outraged, because for centuries we were not acknowledged. And then now that she's acknowledged, the other people everybody's screaming, well, what about this? And what about them? And why does it have to be everything Black? And why does it have to? Because when it wasn't enough. And now that it is, it's too much, because it's not what you want. It's like but how do you address that? There will never, ever be an article that says, little white girl, 14 years old from fucking Tallahassee, Florida, was the first to go to a university. It's never gonna happen.
Well, but it doesn't. But those things don't need to happen because they already did. We're not gonna see them, But we do see, like, let's talk about, like, every time, like, let's look at the Academy Awards. It's always look at who's being celebrated. Those type of things that I had to cut in because we got to end the topic. But like, think about those things.
The point is just that the label and choice. Titles mean everything, and if you don't title something, if it's generic enough to not have a title, it's acceptable.
I just don't
think whether you like it or not.
I just don't think
the only group that was ever included in the conversation were white people for centuries and centuries and centuries. So you're damn right that if a little Black girl, 14-year-old Black girl, gets to college and she's the first one, you damn right it better say the first Black little girl got to college. If the first Asian American boy who won gymnastics won, then that Asian little boy better damn well be listed on that thing, because there's no telling how many times the first in that race or that group actually happened and it was ignored.
No, I was gonna say, I see that part, but at what point in time do you actually stop having your free speech if you can't say what you want to say despite who you piss off?
But like I was just saying that the free speech thing, how Angie was getting into it, because she was saying it's like the fact is, if you don't specifies who you're talking about, like, free speech ends where it caused other people harm. And I just think that the generalization, just that small thing where that allows people to get away with it is dangerous in our country. Like, it's dangerous.
I'm more concerned why others don't feel it inappropriate enough to shame them for being this, for showcasing this hate. That's what concerns me most. Not the two or three that are showcasing it, but the thousands of people who are okay with it. The people that brought them up to think that it's okay to act like that as an adult. That's my issue. And that's a whole nother topic as to why I think that where that comes from. That is not on the docket today. But the fact of the matter is that these grown young people that were at this convention holding those swastika flags and whatever, they were children not too long ago, and somebody made them feel it's okay to do, and that this is acceptable. This is, where do they learn it? In their living rooms, in their churches, in their schools. This is where they learn that thing, by the people that have been allowed to teach our youth that this is okay to utilize their right of free speech in this manner. That's my concern.
Exactly. I agree.
Absolutely. And you know what? With that note, we're gonna go and come back with this topic. But this is the end of the episode. I just kind of want to thank Kathryn Nevets for being here with us and having that kind of discussion, because, we get
blast. This was so much
Kathryn's
fun.
coming back. Kathryn's coming back for more. Trust me.
Girl, we ain't even dug in yet.
She got a taste. She got a taste of this common courtesy.
Got a scent. But I want to thank everyone for listening to our episode. We're going to be talking more about alcoholism and actually, let's talk more about mental health and our LGBTQ plus community. We have some fun things coming up. I'll talk about it later in our on our Facebook page. And until then, I always like to say, guys, try to have a little bit more common courtesy. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Follow our podcast page, Common Courtesy TV, here on Facebook and YouTube for more conversations on love, sex, relationships, and commentary on the latest trending news. And listen to us on multiple podcast platforms via commoncourtesytv.buzzsprout.com.